titans, cloud sweepers, mammoths in the mist, a living fossil, one that has existed for eons, enduring centuries of nature's upheaval, glaciers, earthquakes, fires, and floods. Sequoias impervians, the sole surviving member of a genus whose ancestors evolved during the time of the dinosaurs, and whose lineage has persisted through the millenniums relatively unchanged. Can you imagine redwoods growing in Alaska, Canada, or Montana? 20 million years ago, these ancient trees grew in scattered locations throughout North America. Over time, the shifting of continents, collision of land masses, and uplift of major mountain ranges in the west led to long-term ecological and climatic changes. Changes that continued through the last ice age to modern times and shaped the redwood forest of today. A forest that continues to both expand and contract in response to global warming. A forest now restricted to this 450-mile corridor along the Pacific coast. A place where cool, wet winters continually bathe the forest in moisture. Over 100 inches of rain falls here each year. During the short, dry summers, warm layers of air from inland meet the cold waters of the Pacific, creating a thick fog that blankets the coast. Fog water, absorbed through the leaves, and fog dripping from the trees contributes almost half of the moisture they need annually. And fog may explain why redwoods grow so tall. Rising up through the mist to over 300 feet, redwoods are one of the tallest living things on Earth, dwarfing the Statue of Liberty, which stands at 240 feet. The average age of a coast redwood at maturity is 500 to 600 years, while some trees reach 2,000 years old. Of all the conifers, the coast redwood has one of the smallest cones, about the size of an olive. Luckily, the redwood doesn't depend on seeds alone to reproduce. Around the base of a redwood trunk grows a gnarled mass of living shoots known as root burls. Burls remain dormant until an injury to the parent tree releases the chemical brakes, sending shoots skyward. The new sprouts utilize the mature root system of the parent tree and generally take years to struggle up into the forest canopy. You can often spot these family trees during a walk in a redwood grove. A circle of great trees surrounding an older mammoth tree, a stump or a vacant spot where the parent tree has fallen. These trees are not individuals, but clones of the parent tree, thrust up from a single ancient stem and connected at the roots. For their size, redwoods have a very shallow root system, extending down only 10 to 12 feet, but radiating outward for several hundred feet. This web of roots intertwines with neighbor trees, enabling them to join forces in collecting water and standing up to wind and floods. The tremendous limbs of the redwood drop during windstorms. On the way to the forest floor, they knock off other limbs and branches, creating a path of sunlight to help seeds sprout. Think twice about hiking in the redwoods on windy days. Redwoods are uniquely suited to their environment, resisting the common perils of other trees. Tannin, a chemical found in the wood, leaves, and branches, make it very resistant to insect damage or fungi. Tannin also gives the heartwood its rich red color. The thick bark, 6 to 12 inches on a mature tree, resists fire and insulates from heat. Once or twice a century, conditions are right for the spread of fire in the understory. A ground fire can set the outer bark smoldering. Vigorous flames could heat the bark enough in spots to kill the cambium, the living layer underneath. Subsequent fires have been known to burn away the bark and wood to create a scar, a cavity, or a hollow. Wind or age pushes most redwoods to a shattering death on the forest floor. Saturated with water, the fallen giant continues to contribute to the forest environment. Fungi and other microorganisms convert its wood into nutrients for plants. Insects and small animals find food and shelter among the down debris. Seedlings grow on its decaying wood, and life begins again. Standing among the tall trees, your gaze is often turned up to examine the straight trunk and mass of green foliage that forms the roof within the forest canopy. While you listen, you may hear a series of barks and cries from the spotted owl, or the deep hoots of the great horned owl, the Steller's jay, red-breasted nuthatch, Swainson's thrush, and other woodland birds make their home amid the redwoods. The damp shade of this rainforest creates ideal conditions for amphibians. While amphibian numbers decline worldwide, the red-legged frog, Pacific giant salamander, rough-skinned newt, and many more moisture-loving creatures have a refuge here. Not all the redwood forest wildlife lives within the trees. The creeks that flow beneath the canopy, with their deep pools and clear, cold waters, shelter steelhead and salmon. The forest floor is a great place to look for banana slugs. This welcome resident voraciously processes moss, duff, leaves, and stems, recycling its environment, producing new soil. While the banana slug eats all types of plant matter, it leaves redwood seedlings undisturbed. Together, the redwoods and their understory of trees, shrubs, herbs, flowers, and animals form a complex climax community. Left undisturbed by humans or natural catastrophe, the community will perpetuate itself indefinitely. Indeed, these ancient ambassadors have survived wind, earthquakes, fire, and floods for millions of years, until their most formidable threat stepped ashore only 150 years ago. Explorers seeking shorter routes to the Pacific, 49ers in search of gold, and pioneers seeking a new life invaded the redwood forest. Confounded by the tree's size, early loggers bypassed redwoods in favor of the more familiar fir and spruce. Equipment hadn't been made that could cut, transport, or mill the colossal trees. The respite was short-lived. By the turn of the century, one logging company was harvesting 8.5 million board feet per year. By 1929, extraction increased to about 500 million board feet annually. And by the middle of the 20th century, bulldozers, chainsaws, and modern trucks accelerated cutting. The public became increasingly concerned, stunned by the devastation. In 1918, the first major organization committed to saving the redwoods began. The Save the Redwoods League, made up of conservationists, concerned citizens, and influential politicians, helped establish a number of state and federally protected preserves. In the first 10 years, public opinion and congressional sentiments raised awareness, collected funds, and set aside thousands of acres that formed the nucleus of Prairie Creek, Del Norte Coast, and Jedediah Smith Redwood State Parks. While more redwood groves were purchased, cutting continued adjacent to these preserves, disrupting the rainforest microclimate, exposing the forest to drier conditions. Even those redwoods in state parks were threatened by erosion and freeway construction. It was clear to some that the old-growth redwoods were still in danger. By 1968, public outcry reached such a pitch that Congress supported the establishment of Redwood National Park. Today, more than 100,000 acres flourish under the protection of Redwood National and State Parks. The redwood forest is a living laboratory for restoration practices. It provides critical habitat for many endangered and threatened species. Designated an International Biosphere Reserve, it serves as a regional landscape for learning, in which monitoring, research, education, and training are encouraged. As a World Heritage Site, the Redwood region is recognized as an outstanding place of universal significance. This is your personal classroom, whose wonders wait to be explored. Share in the responsibility to ensure that the countless generations ahead have the same classroom to enjoy. Trees can teach us tenacity, patience, serenity, and respect.